Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Hello, welcome to my show. I am so excited today to have this amazing guest who I had no idea knew me from years ago. We just found that out. And I also just found out something very interesting about the ego, which I didn't know. I'm still laughing about that. We'll get into that in a minute. But I just wanted to tell you guys that I'm really even doubly excited because I am expanding my show to be 4 weeks out of the month instead of 2. And the next time you see me, I'll be talking specifically about my teachings, which are very unique. I have yet to see anybody teach what I teach in terms of spiritual growth and inner development. And I'm calling my show It's All Mirrors. So get ready to be looking deeply at some of those reflections that you may not want to look at. Anyway, so let me introduce my guest. Ray Catania is an acclaimed author, metaphysical counselor, theorist, and educator known for his breakthroughs in consciousness and scientific spirituality. I'm dying to hear what that is, since I am what you would call a spiritual skeptic and a spiritual obsessive, wanting to know it all. But skepticism used to run my life. Now it's a little bit there, but not as much. So he also deals with practical application of scientific spirituality and metaphysics, which I also think is really fascinating. And what I love about this guy, which I'll tell you a story about this in a minute, but he's a former atheist. And then he had a near-death experience and everything transformed about his reality. Now, this is my story really fast. I was, I think, 12 years old, and I was in the backseat of my parents' car. We were going somewhere, and I had already been like churning with questions and what is it all about, and is there a God, and what happens when we die? I mean, I drove my parents crazy with my questions. And I was sitting in the backseat of the car, and I all of a sudden just out of the blue announced that this was the joke here. I swear to God, I'm an atheist. My parents fell over laughing because I didn't realize what I had said.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh my gosh, I just said something really stupid. But that's what really triggered my spiritual growth. The fact that I declared I was an atheist and I want answers, damn it. So anyway, Ray's entire life was transformed by that experience. And I hopefully he will tell us all about it. He developed the Mind Mastery Program to help others awaken their spiritual mind's potential to overcome that pesky ego, negativity, and self-limiting beliefs. And he is the visionary behind Limitless Publications. So I could talk all in another 20 minutes about all the things that he's done. He's authored 2 compelling books, award-winning books. Let's see. The Awakening series, The Atheist and The Afterlife, and You Are Still Alive, Now Act Like It. And that's where I got the title of my show. I stole it directly from his book because I thought, what a great title. And it's so true. You know, we walk around through life going, oh, yeah, whatever. Okay, fine. You know, we don't really act like we own this gift of life. So I can't wait to hear about that too. So welcome, Ray.
Royce, thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you. Thank you.
Oh, you are welcome. So, first question on my list, tell us about the near-death experience and what happened.
Sure. So the near-death experience was, I was 20 years old. But prior to that, like yourself, as a young person, well, I don't know if you had the same experiences, but the reason I was an atheist was because I just couldn't, I didn't have a great childhood. It was pretty rough, a lot of trauma, drama. To avoid that as a kid, as a young child, I would hide to avoid it, maybe in a closet, under the bed, out in the backyard. There was a lot of just, alcohol fueled anger, so let's just say. So I couldn't believe that there would be this loving God. We went to church on Sunday, and these things happen at home, but then here, and things were just so completely different. And I just couldn't accept that, I'm just a kid. Why would this happen to me? Why do I live here? Why does this happen? Right. So I just completely rebelled and went in the other direction. It didn't really matter what my parents' religion was. I was going to rebel against it
Mm.
100%. So I did. I became this atheist. I called myself one, probably not even knowing what that was. And at the age of 20, I'm still living in my parents' house, and my bedroom is on the second floor, and it's directly above the kitchen. The kitchen has the stove, which runs on natural gas, and there's a gas leak. So the natural gas is rising, and it's going right up into my bedroom where I'm sleeping all night long. We don't really know how many hours it was leaking for. So I was inhaling that for many hours. And the next morning, my mother got up and she turned on the stove, and I guess there was this big ball of flames. And it has a emergency shutoff valve, but it did catch the wall on fire. There was some smoke, but it wasn't the smoke or the fire or any of that. That went out pretty quickly. My father grabbed the fire extinguisher, the way I understand the story. But here's what happened. It was the gas that got me, because I heard the fire trucks coming to the house. I heard the police cars, the sirens, I heard the commotion, and I tried to get out of bed, and I could not move certain parts of my body. My legs were completely paralyzed. I could not get them to move. My head and neck, I could not get to move. I couldn't yell, which was very, very strange. My arms worked, or at least my right arm did, and my left arm kind of did. And I pulled myself to the edge of the bed because I know I've got to get out of this bed. What is happening downstairs? All I know is I'm half paralyzed and there's a lot of commotion downstairs. That's all I know at this point. So I'm trying to pull myself out. I don't know that there's a fire. I don't know anything. And I just know there's something seriously wrong with me. And I'm trying to get myself to the edge of the bed, and it's very difficult because I keep blacking out. And then I come to and I pull a couple more inches and I black out again. Well, finally I got to the edge, and I guess with the very last pull, I tumbled out and I fell down face first,
Oh,
and I hit my face on the floor. And here's what's very unique about the situation. You know how you know that you have an impact and it's about to hurt. There's a pain's going to set in any moment, right? That didn't happen. The pain part. There was just no pain. When I hit that floor face first, I wasn't in that body anymore. It was a millisecond. I hit it and I was out. And it was almost as if I was saved the pain that I was about to experience. Now, in that moment, I'm above myself and I'm looking down on my lifeless body. I'm in the corner of the room, upper left-hand corner. My body is face down. I mean, I can still picture it like it was yesterday. I could tell you what I was wearing, the way I was faced. I mean, everything. And the room was a perfect square. And in the adjacent corner to me, there was a light. I mean, when I call it a light, that's not even a fair, there's no words to describe this light, this white light. It's a tunnel, if you will. And the light and me, my energetic self, which is what all it was shining on. It was not shining on the room. It was not on anything else. Almost like a spotlight just on me, but not the dead me, the real me. And I am one with this light. I am the light. The light is me. I am the light. And it's so euphoric and such an amazing feeling. There is no pain. There's no worry. There's no, uh, it's just completely euphoric. I wish I had more words to describe it. And at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the light, is someone who tells me it's okay to come into the light. Ray, it's okay to come into the light. And I was like, wow, it knows my name. I don't know if it's a male or a female. I can't see anything. I don't actually hear this. It's just a transmission of information from the end of the light. It's okay. And I wasn't very trusting back then, but I proceeded to go into the light. And as I got further in, the euphoria increased. So I was like, okay, this is good. I'm headed in the right direction. And I kept going, and I wanted to get to the end of the light. I really did. Here's what happens. At that moment, when I'm about a quarter of the way, or I don't know exactly how far in, my father kicks in the door because he must have heard me fall out of the bed. And they came running in, and he scooped me up off the floor. And he was screaming and crying, and he was distraught. And he was like, my son, my son. And he was calling for the paramedics. And I saw that. And I was like, who is that man?
Wow.
My father never hugged me.
Wow.
And I was so emotionally moved by that I asked the being at the end of the light if I can go back. Now, I'm not saying that's why I went back, because I never got an answer. All I know is the next thing is that I did wake up, and I wasn't in his arms anymore. I was on the living room floor, and the paramedics were resuscitating me, and they were working with their tools and their equipment. And I'm like, whoa, guys, I feel great. Get off me. Get off me. What's going on? Like I was kind of like half in, half out, I felt really, really good. Excuse me. And I'm trying to explain to them, I feel great. And they're like, kid, relax. You're far from great. Okay. And the other guy's yelling, bring up the truck, bring up the truck. And I'm like, but guys, did you see the light? Did you hear the voice? I mean, wasn't that amazing?
Oh,
and now that they're looking at each other like, oh, okay, we got to get a tox screen, see what drugs this guy's on, or if he's crazy. And I just shut up because they would have, I don't know what hospital I would have wound up in. Right.
Oh, wow.
So, they took me to the hospital. I was released the next day. The whole time I'm just in shock, and I'm trying to process what transpired. I just can't really figure it out. And back then, there's no cell phones, there's no computers, there's no internet. I have nowhere to take this. So I tell my mother, and she tells me that never happened.
Oh.
She denies the whole thing. Now, I get this. I didn't understand it at the time, but today I do.
Yeah.
If my son died on my watch, I would be in denial, and I would say it never happened too. Okay. Because how do you process that? No one came up to get me. They knew I was there, right? No one came to get me. So I guess everybody forgot about the gas because I wasn't being burned. Everybody just like, oh, okay, let him sleep. Well, I died when you let me sleep. So I get it. And I've made my peace with that, and actually today, it wasn't until the first book was released. My mother was 82 years old, and she said, listen, you must hate me. And I said, no, I don't hate you at all. I said, in fact, I understand you now more than ever. And I understand myself, and I understand humanity, and I don't hate you at all. And she said that day was the most traumatizing day for her. And she's like, when they were driving you to the hospital, you actually died 3 more times in the ambulance. And I didn't even know that. I only knew about the one. So it was even worse than I had thought. But after that, I am trying to still, like I said, process it. I have nowhere to go. Where do you go? The library? I mean, there's just nowhere for me to go. And I tried telling a couple of friends, and they're like, you're crazy. Anybody I told, I was crazy. Okay. And so I decided to just put this in a box and make it not what it was. And here's how I did it. I justified it away. I said the light was the sun that was shining through the window, and it was on my body. Probably it was a sunny day. Maybe. And I had inhaled the gas fumes so much that I was so high that I made up the voice, and everything else was a big hallucination. And I just put this in a box and I put it away, and I didn't have to deal with it that way. And it made it easier for me. I could remain an atheist. Life was easier. I didn't care what happened. I didn't care if I lived or died. It just didn't matter to me. And I was very reckless in my 20s. But one of the things I forgot to mention in my early youth, in my childhood, when I was spending all those hours and I was hiding, I was just staring at walls. Again, no cell phones, nothing to play with, no toys. It's just me and a wall. And eventually I could start to see the energy that's in the wall. And you could see the little lines, or I could. And when I told people I could see that, they told me I was crazy, right? So I'm always crazy, no matter what. So I just learned to keep my mouth shut. But I could see and feel energy, and I died and came back. And what this opened up was, I guess, a portal, if you will, of where the afterlife, they know I can see them and I can feel them, and it was game time. So I was trying to put this away, and they're trying to open this up. So here's what happens. I move out of my house, and I get my first bachelor pad, and I'm all excited because, it's going to be like, bachelor parties and girls and stuff and whatnot. None of that ever happens. None of that. And I'll explain why. From the minute I moved into this apartment, it felt like it was filled with people.
Wow.
Just filled with people. And there's nobody there but me. And I could see the lines going across the white walls, and I could see the swirlies out of the corner of my eyes, and everything that was electrical, it would work, then it wouldn't work, and the alarm would go off, and the phones would cut out. These are landlines. They would just go out depending on what I said. One time I said to my friend, I said, just totally in jest, because I don't believe in this stuff, I said, I think my house is haunted. Click. And I called him back and I said, why'd you hang up on me? He goes, I didn't hang up. I thought you hung up. And I said, no. So anyway, what I was saying is things are really crazy around here. It's like it's haunted. Click. Okay, wow. So it was on. Like there was no mistake. I called the maintenance guy 100 times, and he comes up and he says, you know what, kid? There's nothing wrong with your phone. There's nothing wrong with your alarm. There's nothing wrong with anything except you. You're crazy.
Oh my God.
So here I am again. And I'm starting to accept this as my reality. I'm starting to actually believe that I am crazy. So what does one do in their 20s when they think they're crazy? Well, I started to live a very careless lifestyle, a very reckless lifestyle. And I could not sleep in that apartment. I had a 1-year lease and I couldn't sleep. So I started to use massive amounts of drugs and alcohol in order to get to sleep. It was the only way. I remember I would be up all night just playing video games, trying to keep my mind occupied. So, because whenever my mind was idle, here they came. Things that I don't believe in. I would yell at them. I don't believe in you. Go away. I'm an atheist. Leave. Find somebody who believes in you,
Wow.
And so I left that apartment thinking I was going to get a fresh start in my new apartment. It was the second one. And as soon as I moved in, it was the exact same thing all over again. So it wasn't the apartments that were haunted. It was Ray. And wherever Ray went, they were coming. And that was that. And I had to accept this. But I wasn't not accepting it as being anything other than I was crazy, which is what I was always told. Excuse me. Sorry.
We both have allergies.
Yeah, my landscapers just came like 5 minutes before, and we had rain too. Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm in the second apartment, and this lifestyle that I lead leads me to work for people who are very shady. I didn't go to college at that time. I basically, worked in environments where it was dangerous. One time we were in a nightclub. It was late at night. It was after hours, and there a shootout started between the people that I was with and the other people, and I was behind the bar, and I was hiding under the bar. I mean, I just worked at the bar, and and I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get out of here. And I was panicking, and the same voice that told me it was okay to come into the light tells me side door, side door,
Wow.
side door. And I in the moment, I'm like, I can't get to the side door, because if I stand up, the shooter, I don't even know who's shooting at who yet. I'm literally, I bent down to get something under the bar, and I have no alternative. So I go for it. I run for the side door. And then when you get out the first door, there's a second one. You have to make a left. There's a second door. And then you have to go down a 40-foot corridor to get out the next side door. And that's the real exit to the parking lot. And don't you know, I parked my car right outside that door on that night. I had never parked there ever. I had my own parking space on the other side of the building that I could use, and I used all the time. But for some reason that night, I put my car right there outside that side door.
Wow.
And I don't know why. So I think in the back of my mind, I knew that I had an NDE. I learned a little bit more about them. And I was like, okay, so what's the worst that can happen? I go back to the light. That was pretty cool. So, I'm going to live this lifestyle on the edge. And, it was all sex, drugs, rock and roll and everything else. So, but then I meet my wife and we have kids. And now I have a reason to live, because I brought 2 boys into this world, 2 tiny humans that was fully dependent on me. And I was not going to be the same guy that my father was. I was not going to raise them the way I was raised. So I checked myself into rehab. That was the first thing I did. I drove myself to rehab. I gave them the keys. I don't know who does this, but I said, don't let me out of here. And after that, I went back to college and online, and I got my degree, and I got a very good job, and I worked my way up in the company. And then I left that company. I went to another company. I worked my way up the ladder. I became vice president of that company, did very well. My kids never went without anything. I tell them I love them every single time I see them, because I don't know if it's going to be the last time, because I've really experienced that so many times. And I'm one who I communicate with them, and I let them talk, and I don't tell them they're crazy, and I don't tell them there's anything wrong with them. And I've never, ever raised my hand to them. It's just everything the opposite the way I had it.
Yeah.
My marriage fell apart early, but I obviously, the kids, I still had the kids. And it was many, many years that went by before I ever dated again. And I think it was probably because I was a little leery about bringing another woman into their life, because I didn't know how that would really play out. And probably I was just, it's my own ego. You're not good enough. You're not this, you're not that. Who knows? Combination of those, I would imagine. But finally I did. I decided that I was going to date again, and I went online, and because I'm 40 something at this time when I'm going online to look for somebody serious. And I remember looking at the different websites, and I came across this one, and it had 4 women that were in my area. They all try to do that to try to get you to, join the website. And it wasn't like Tinder or anything. I was looking for something a little more legit or whatever. So anyway, the 3rd woman down, I looked at her and I said, oh my God, I know her. But I didn't know her, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I knew that I knew her. It was like she and I were one. And it was this incredible feeling. Like I was just vibrating. And I was like, that's my wife. So I emailed her right away. I joined the site, and I sent one email. It's the only one I ever sent. And I said, I joined the site to send you this one email. And this is going to sound completely crazy, but you're my wife and you just don't know it yet. By the way, my name's Ray. Would you like to have dinner? And she responds with, you're crazy. Yeah. But yes, I would love to have dinner with you, you nut. And we did. And we are married, and we live here, and we've been together ever since. And there's no question that she's my soulmate.
Wow. And
here's how it gets even crazier, because when we first meet in the very, very beginning, up until that point, I've seen energy. I've felt energy. It's always been energy. It's never really been anything in human form. But when I meet her, we're dating for about 2 months. And what happens for the very first time is I have a vision inside my mind. It's not my eyes, not ears. Okay. So it's all here, right? A movie screen opens up and I can see things on the movie screen, and there'll be a person or people on the screen and they'll talk to me. And here's this man who's on the screen. Everything else is black. Man's on the screen. He's a big husky guy. He's got a thick beard, mustache, thick black hair, big stocky Italian looking guy. And he says, I effed up. I made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot. And now I'm like, oh my God, like I just learned how to deal with this. And, I don't even know what this is. This is like a brand new thing. And I'm finally falling in love, and I'm going to lose my mind. And this is just crazy. And this guy keeps coming back and coming. It was a Friday when it happened. I was at work, and it happened over and over and over again. So finally I decided to go home. And, there's one part to the story I forgot. This was around my birthday, and my wife asked me, I don't know if everything just got doubled for some reason. My wife had asked me, what do you want for your birthday? Do you want to go away? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I was like, no. I don't really want to celebrate. She goes, well, you know what I think I'm going to get for you? And I said, no, what? She goes, a spiritual clearing. I was like, well, what is that? Like a massage? And she's like, no, dummy. It's a spiritual clearing. You don't even have to be there. The woman's going to do it. It's distant. She'll call you and tell you everything. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. We having cake? Yeah, we'll have cake. So I don't get it. I don't understand it. But the woman calls me and she does this. And it's right after that moment that I see the guy. So like I said, again, this is Friday. And he's very persistent. He keeps coming back every time my mind is idle. We don't live together at this point in time. So I go to my house and I try to watch Netflix or just put anything on so this guy won't come back. And he keeps saying the same thing. I effed up. I made a mistake. You can help her. I cannot. On Saturday, it felt like it was every hour on the hour from the second I woke up. By Sunday, I could not function at all. I couldn't drive. I couldn't speak to people. I would lose my train of thought. As I was trying to interact with anyone, he would just boom, be there again, saying the same thing. It was like the same 8-second video loop. And I was like, I'm losing my mind. And I remember being in a store, paying for my stuff at the counter, and I was handing the woman my credit card, and she says, sir, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm not. Wow. And I took my card back and I went to my car and I lost it. I was crying. What do you need me to do? I did everything. I suffered, I endured. I went to rehab. I got my college degree. I did everything right. And here I am. It's the end of my life. And I still have kids, and they're still relatively young. They're teens, but they're young. So I call my brother and I make sure he's got all my paperwork, because I had a will drawn up. I had a DNR. I'm like, I said to my brother, you've got to pull the plug if it ever comes down to, I do not want to be resuscitated. I'm going back to that light, and that's that. I don't want to hear any, do not screw this up. And he's like, why are you asking me this? And I was like, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. I just want to make sure you have all the paperwork. And he didn't believe me, but and so I was preparing to make sure my kids had everything they needed, because I was sure this was the end of my life. I was crazy. It was finally happening. I was losing my mind. And now I have to tell this woman that I just fell in love with, just found. I know she's my soulmate, and I got to tell her she's got to go find somebody else because I'm crazy. And if the whole story is not crazy enough, she's a doctor of psychology and a doctor of neuropsychology by trade. Yeah.
Wow.
So the thing is, I'm like, well, maybe, I know she's going to run for the hills, but maybe she'll give me somebody that can help me, another doctor, a referral or something. And so I finally get my courage to tell her what's happening. And I get into the story, and the movie screen opens up, and there's a guy, and I'm vibrating, and he says, I effed up. I made a mistake, blah, 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 blah. Thick black hair, husky guy. And she's like, what? That sounds like my dad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, time out, honey. You said your dad died 10 years ago. And she's like, he did. And I'm like, okay, you're nuts. Check, please. I'm getting out of here now. You think I'm seeing dead people? She's like, you might be a psychic medium and you just don't know it.
Wow.
And I'm like, a what? I knew what a psychic was, but a medium? I didn't even know what that word meant. So she goes on to explain this. And the minute we had this conversation, he's gone. The guy's left. He never came back. And I felt like this feeling of euphoria, a little touch of what I was when I went into the light. And it was a relief. And she's like, listen, there's a medium that's coming to our area. I was going to make a couple appointments. I've been to many mediums, and my father always comes through just the way you said. You know, he's always front and center. He's very forceful. He's, you know, he just knows how to get his point across. And he was a powerful guy in real life or this life. I don't know which one's real, right? Probably the other one's real, but in this life, he was very powerful. Over there, he still got that. So I agreed to see the medium. What have I got to lose, right? So she makes us 2 appointments, and I go in first, and I sit down, and she says, I said, hi, I'm Ray. And she goes, oh, you're that Ray. And I said, I'm sorry. She goes, tell me why you're here, right? And I said, well, I see people, but they're not really there. She goes, me too. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I guess you kind of do, don't you? So I tell her, and I was like, well, the vibrations, and then I see the lines, and then the movie screen opens up, and she goes, stop. I said, what? She goes, that's exactly the way I see it. We all see it, the movie screen. Yeah. It's very common that it's explained that way. And I said, oh. So she goes, medium. And I said, and I was kind of relieved, but then I started to ask her all kinds of questions. I was like, what is the one question you've gotten your whole life that you hate the most? And at the same time we answered, she's looking at me, she's thinking, and we both said, how do you know that? And I'm like, I don't know. She goes, I don't know either. I said, I don't know how the hell I know anything. It just pops into my head. Well, I could be sitting at a table and boom, something comes in and somebody says, how do you know that? I said, I don't know how I know that. I just do. And, you know, that went on through her life and my life. And she shared with me that she was actually hospitalized because her parents did think she was schizophrenic, and she was hospitalized and got herself out of there. So how many others could there be, you know?
Yeah. It's changing slowly. The world is changing
slowly.
Yeah. We need to take a break, but when we come back, Ray Catania, that Ray Catania, I want you to talk about how all of that led you to let go of your atheistic nature, and also how you got involved in scientific spirituality. So we will be right back.
Home Times TV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. I am talking with Ray Catania. Amazing story. And all those spiritual experiences are things that I have gone through. And luckily, nobody told me, well, maybe not to my face, but nobody said you're crazy. So that's good. Who knows what my family really thinks. But tell us, from all of those experiences, you still haven't said, okay, this is why I believe in God. So how did that happen?
Well, I would say that, once I came to terms with the fact that this was real, okay, and the woman that I met with took me on under her wing for the first year, and then I had another mentor in my second year who's very well known. It was very difficult for me to get into that program, and he just showed me, he completely enlightened me. I mean, it wasn't just about mediumship, it was about spirituality, it was about everything. It was about manifestation, it was about diminishing the ego, everything. This man was just feeding me, and I was just enthralled. And I spent it was a 2-year program, and I think it's 5 years later. I'm still with him, I'm not leaving. And I'm like the guy that never graduates in the back of the class. I'm not going anywhere. You're like the dad I never had. And but so he showed me so much more. Now, he was a medium coach, but the thing is as I wrote the first book, and that's kind of where that book ends. And the next book begins, You're Alive, Now Act Like It, because this is where the journey for me begins. Mediumship was not for me because it was very, very taxing. When I was communicating and giving this information to a sitter, it was affecting me. And I was working on, for the longest time, learning how to diminish my ego, how to not have negative emotions anymore, how to live, as the Buddhists say, the middle way. And I was really accomplishing this, and it was all coming together because I was studying physics, and I went back to school again for metaphysics, did a bachelor's and a master's. I'm doing my PhD now. And I read everything. I mean, from Eckhart to Deepak to Joe Dispenza, and I've had the privilege of working with some of them. Like, I'm with Eckhart Tolle right now, who's an incredible human being, and it's just been so amazing. And I, like you, have always been a skeptic. So in order for me to put anything into the book, the second book has a lot of techniques that people can use. The first one's more about the story, but the second one is more about how can you repeat what I've done so that you don't be reactive, and you don't worry about the guy who cuts you off, and you don't worry about if you forgot your 2:00 appointment, because it really doesn't matter anyway. Nothing matters. When you really think about it, we worry about so much crap that we shouldn't really worry about. And we do this to ourselves, as you know, because you teach this. And so as I was studying physics and metaphysics, I started to find connections, how they went together. And I put my skepticism to rest by finding things like, well, how does the law of attraction work? I learned about frequency, energy, frequency, vibration. And I learned how we change a thought in our mind into a frequency, and how we send that out, and it looks for its match and it brings it back. Just the way this desk stays together, because they are on the wood particles are on the same frequency, so they stick together. It's very, very simple when you think about it, but you have to take a moment and put these things together. And that's what the second book does. So it is more about understanding the who, what, when, where, why, what's under the hood of these spiritual techniques. And before anything goes into the book, I have to be able to replicate it. I have to be able to find the actual physics behind it. And I have to give it to somebody else to be able to replicate it. Otherwise, I won't put it in the book. Now, I didn't do that in the first book. And I tell you that there's some times that I just took the words of my mentors. But the second one, I put everything to the test before it went in there. And I decided that that was going to be my thing that I was going to give to the world. And I think I mentioned earlier when we were off camera, you were an inspiration. You didn't remember, but many, many years ago, I saw your website and I saw what you were doing. And I said, that's what I want to do. And I wrote to you and you were kind enough to write me back. And like I said, with some wise words. And I thank you for that, because I don't think you realize you made a huge difference in the direction of my life.
And I can't remember it.
Because we have no egos anymore.
Right, exactly.
Our egos are this big, you know.
Yeah. If anybody's wondering out there, if you're losing your memories, it's because you're letting go of your ego. I'm going to frame that and put that on my wall.
Yeah. The ego is your obsessive compulsive. You got to do this at 2. You got to do this at 2. You got to be there at 4 o'clock tomorrow. Don't forget this on Wednesday, you know, and I don't have that anymore because I don't care. I let that go. Yeah. And I have to put everything in a calendar and I have to write everything down. And the people that I'm working with, they are saying, I think I'm losing my memory. And I think it's because of, you know, this, that. I said, no. It's because of what we're doing here. So don't worry about it. That means you're making progress. If you're not getting angry anymore and you're not feeling those negative emotions so much and you're not worrying about things you don't have to worry about yet, you're breaking apart your ego. Yeah. And when you do that, some of your memory is going to go with it. I mean, it's not like, you know, we're not talking about really severe stuff, but the day-to-day stuff that you may have to remember, you're going to have to write it down, put it in a calendar. So I decided that I was going to go in that direction. When I think we have a lot of spiritual awakenings, but I had one at the end of that second book that was so big that I decided that this is what I have to give to other people. I have to show them how they can do this too.
So can you give us hints?
Oh, yeah, but sure. Well, the manifestation was one of the big ones for me. And, you know, I had watched, what was it called? The Secret, I think, a long time ago. Yes. And I was like, okay, that's great and all, but how does that actually work? You know? So I, of course, studied Tesla, energy, frequency, vibration, and I studied Einstein, and I studied Heisenberg and Dirac, and how all of this comes together in a scientific view, and applied it to the meditation that I was taught. So here's the thing. My mentor gave me a meditation for manifestation. And frankly, when he first gave it to me, I thought it was a little hokey, right? But here's what happened. True story. As soon as he gave it to me, and it was at a time when my younger son was going to college. He was going to live on campus. And the college sent me an email or called or whatever. And they said, you owe us 10 grand. Where's that last $10,000? And I was like, oh my God, I thought I paid I thought it was free and clear. He's leaving in a day to go there. So I'm panicking. I'm like, where am I going to get this money from? And I was just taught this technique. So I said, what have I got to lose? You're supposed to do it twice a day. There's specific ways to do it, specific ways you have to say things in your mind. Can't say certain things, as I'm sure you know. So that I practiced it. I did it exactly the way I was told. And I did it 6 times a day. At the end of the first day, nothing happened. And my other son had handed me a pile of the mail, and it was a pile of bills. And I was like, oh my God, I must be doing this wrong. And I put the pile of bills down. And the second day I do it again. And I'm like, I need $10,000. I need it now. Thank you for the $10,000. Post before and past tense, like I've already received. I'm doing the whole thing the way I'm supposed to do it 6 times. Again, nothing. Now I'm worried. I'm trying to figure out, okay, I got to borrow from here. Maybe I could take from here. Maybe I can do this. And finally, I pick up that pile of bills from yesterday and I'm going through them. And in there is a tax bill from my CPA. I had just done my taxes. I opened it up and I was like, this is going to be terrible. And I was like, I don't know. I guess I'm saying this wrong. And I open up the tax bill and it says, thank you for your business. You owe us, X amount of dollars for doing your taxes. But it was my return. And so I took out the next letter and it said, Dear Ray, blah, blah, blah. You have overpaid the federal government $8,200 and something dollars. And I took out the second letter and it said, Dear Ray, you have overpaid the state of New Jersey $1,200 and something dollars.
Wow.
Barely broke 10. And it was on the first day it was handed to me by my other son.
Wow.
I wept like a child.
Wow.
It was there the whole time.
Wow.
Now I don't question anymore. And I did it 4 more times after that. So, my wife wanted to open a yoga studio and we needed 25,000. So, I was doing it again and it took a little longer. It was a couple of weeks, but, it was COVID time and, we had a Zoom meeting where the whole company was online and the president of the company was saying, hey, guys, since you're all 1099, contractors, you can apply for what's called PPE money. And it's a loan you don't have to pay back. And I was like, wonder what I could get. So I type it in. And I went to acorn.com, and within seconds it came back and it says, you're approved for a loan for $28,000, just a little over 25. Did it 2 more times and I can go on and on, but it was always just a smidgen over what I asked for. And it always worked and it never let me down. I started to feel guilty. I stopped doing it. I was like, this is just too easy.
Wow.
So I've used it for other things, and it's just been absolutely wonderful.
Wow. Well, we only have like 10 more minutes. I could talk to you forever. One of the things that I noticed in some of the information that you sent me is there's 7 steps to a spiritual awakening. Can you real quickly tell us what those are?
Yeah, sure. So, the first thing is understanding the mind and how the mind works and how we're programmed between the ages of 2 and 7 when we're in kind of a theta state. And most of the day, if you're familiar with the brainwave state, the theta state is a hypnotic type state. And this was done for our survival. And this information is being fed into you, whether you're listening to it or you're not listening to it, whether it's on television or your parents or what have you. I'll try to go a little bit faster. I know we're running late on time. The second one is to understand the power of the mind and what you can do with your mind, like the law of attraction, and just about change the way that your environment is, because you can attract people or repel people based upon your thoughts and your energy and your aura, that's called, but it's really your energy that you're putting out. And, this is the power of the mind is so great that everybody should, if you just understand that much, what you can do with your mind, it can change your life and the life of others around you. And then I get into what is consciousness. We really have to understand consciousness is probably the unifying theory. And Einstein was trying to find what the unifying theory was when he died. And he didn't say it was consciousness, but there's a guy by the name of Hagelin who went to the moon and he was an astronaut and he says it's consciousness. And I think he's right. I think that the faster that we realize that, we can move forward with how powerful the mind and consciousness is. And energy, frequency, vibration is the next one. Understanding how everything in this world is broken down into particles, and those particles are not what they are because they are what they are because of a Higgs field. The Higgs field is called the God particle. And it's that field that is between you and I, and between us and Pluto, and between every single crevice of the universe. The Higgs field decides that this desk is a wood desk. And when it decides it's something else, then it's something else. So if we can tap into that Higgs field, it would be amazing, wouldn't it? And I think we can to a degree. I'm not saying we're going to move mountains tomorrow, but one day we will evolve as a species, as mankind, and we'll be able to do a lot more things. Eckhart Tolle says we won't need technology in another, 50 years. We will be the technology. We'll be able to handle all of that. Tuning into your higher self, or God, or the collective consciousness, whatever term you wish to use, the creator of all, that power is there for you. And you're a part of that power, and that power is a part of you. And Jesus told us that you're a part of God, God's a part of you. That's literal. That's literal. Because when you want to create and you want to manifest, you're tapping into that power. And that's how we create the things that we create. And that's where miracles come from. I don't believe miracles are magic tricks. I believe miracles are the downloads that we receive. And then we take those downloads and we change the world with those downloads. And we make the world a better place, like many people have done. That's a miracle. The next one is, what is reality? And really understanding what's real in our reality and what isn't. And this is, I could go on. I don't think we have enough time, but I'll get to the very last one. It's changing your perception. If you change your perception, you change your truth. If you change your truth, you change your reality. So it all starts with your perception. If you and I see something and we both see it, let's say, I used to have this couch that was in my office, and some people would say it was brown. Others would say it's gray. Some would say it's beige. And I would ask them what color it was, and I would always get a different answer. And I would say that it's gray. My perception of what the color of the couch was is my truth. So in my reality, that's a gray couch. In your reality, that's a brown couch. And this is a very small example of what we can do on a much bigger, greater scale. In fact, Michael Jordan actually said that when he sometimes goes on the basketball court, that basketball hoop is like a big bucket, and he can just put the ball up and he doesn't miss. And Tiger Woods said something similar. So that we can change our perception of reality to change our reality. And that is incredible.
Wow. I never heard that. That's great. So in the couple of minutes we have left, all of those things, as my students would say to me after I espouse all these great things, they always say, well, how do you get there? So do you have a particular practice that you use to get all of those things?
Yes. Well, I do coaching where I coach people, and the Mind Mastery program is a step-by-step. It's not released yet. It's still in production, but it's almost completed. All of the things that are in the second book are in the program, and plus a couple of more. But everything that we discussed so far is in that second book. You're Still Alive Now, Act Like It. And that was the basis of the book, was how I achieved my spiritual awakening, and I wanted to give that to other people. So that is in the book. Mind Mastery will take that even one step further.
Excellent. Tell us about your books and how to find you, and
Sure.
it's available for everyone, because this was fascinating. And there's the books. I love it.
Yeah, my wife had those made. I guess she was pretty proud, and I was kind of proud too. I always wanted to write a book ever since I was a kid. I never knew what it would be about, but I always knew that I one day wanted to write a book, and here it is with such a great message, or at least I think so. So The Atheist and The Afterlife, You're Still Alive Now, Act Like It. Both of them are part of the Awakening series. You can get them on Amazon or any Barnes & Noble, any bookstore in the world. They're in every format in 52 countries. The Mind Mastery program and myself, you can find at raycatania.com, and you can get more information about working with me or the program itself. And thank you so much for allowing me to say that, Royce. I really appreciate it. And you are an inspiration to me. So I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Wow. I wish I could remember what I said.
I'll try to find the email.
Oh, I'd love to see it. Yeah. Well, thank you, Ray Catania. And I hope people reach out to you, and you're an inspiration, just incredible. And I would love to chat with you again at some point. That's just awesome. Please. And just to remind everybody that hopefully, fingers crossed, next Wednesday, I'm going to be on talking about It's All Mirrors, and sharing some of my spiritual amazing experiences as well. And I'm going to have other guests that are actually my longtime students. I have some very longtime students as well. And we'll be talking about all kinds of ways to access what's really going on and why we keep attracting certain things and certain people in our lives to really wake us up and have us look within. So I hope you all join me. And again, thank you so much, Ray. And I will see you all next week.